All right, now back to this MARR. Because MARR is important in the chapter, right? It's gonna be your interest rate. So how do you determine the MARR? Well, there are many ways to determine that. Usually for a big company, they will have their own team made of, managers and experienced leaders and accountants, financial, FEO, right? Those head persons, they will sit together and then look at their financial report and the market. They can decide their MARR. Okay, that's one way. And another way is you just go check the market and see in the same business, in the same industry, how is the average interest rate, how is other similar companies' return, and you want to compare that with your own situation, and then you can make that decision like, okay, if averagely everybody is earning like 5%, then I would say 5% is my bottom line as well. So I will use that as my MARR. Okay. And also, here is another way that you can determine MARR. For example, if your company has many ways to improve its profitability, so you have this many proposals, okay, from A to G. So proposal A is you can upgrade your computer network so that everything can be more efficient, okay? That will improve your efficiency so that you will have more, revenue. And another option B is you can have new delivery trucks, so that will improve your delivery speed, and then your logistic cost is gonna be lower, right? That is also helpful for your profitability. And option C, maybe you can remodel the loading docks. It also helps to increase your logistics speed. And option D is you can hire in-house data entry, okay, so that your inventory record is made more efficiently. Proposal E is you can purchase accounting software, so you don't have to hire expensive accountants to help with some simple accounting tasks, so that will lower your cost. And proposal F is you might provide new laptops to salespeople so they can, when they do sales, they can be more efficient, right? And more effective. And the last proposal is you can install security cameras in warehouse so that you can make sure your inventory are safe, and you can reduce the staff you're using to safeguard your inventory. So that's another way to lower the cost. All right, so imagine that your company has all these potential opportunities, but you want to decide which ones to go with. Okay, so every single of them will cost some money. Okay, you want to upgrade your computer network, of course you have to pay for that. You want to have a new delivery truck, yes, you need to pay for that. So everyone, you need to know how much it costs, and also you want to know what is the return on that investment. Okay, so imagine that we already know how much they cost. Maybe for option A it costs 60,000. Okay, and then the return of it is maybe the return is 35%. So which means if you invest 60,000 to upgrade your computer network, then your profit would be 60,000 times that return rate. Okay, So this is gonna be your profit. So imagine that you know this information for every single project. Okay, I won't write all of them down here to just save some time, but you can imagine as a company, you should know all the cost and the return and the profit for each proposal. Okay, and then the next question is, okay, you don't have that much money now. Then you need to go to the bank. You want to borrow some money from the bank so that you can implement all this or some of these profitable proposals. Okay, so what information you will get from a bank? The bank would say, okay, if you borrow some money, you need to pay some interest. That makes sense, right? And the more you can borrow, the higher interest it could be, because the risk is high that maybe you couldn't repay the bank. So the bank needs a higher interest rate. And then the bank might just evaluate your ability, your company size, and say, hey, the maximum amount I can lend you the money is maybe just 600,000. Okay, so that's the information you can get from the bank. Then how do you decide which project to go with? So we can make a chart to do that, to make that decision. And that will show you what is the MARR is. Okay, so the chart could be the x-axis is how much you borrow from the bank. Okay, and the bank said the maximum amount is 600,000 maybe. Right, so you might have, you can borrow first 100,000. I will say 100K, okay, to save some space, and then 200K, and then 300K, and then 400K, and then 500K, and then 600K, and then, well, they don't want to lend you 700K, but we still can draw it on this chart. Okay, so and then we can use this y-axis as the interest rate that you need to pay to the bank. Okay, and so the bank said, if I lend you 100K, the interest rate is 10%. So that's your point. And then the bank said, if you want to borrow less than 200K, still it's gonna be 10%. But if you want to borrow more, like over 200K, but less than 300K, the interest rate is a little bit higher. Maybe 12%. Okay, so let's label this intervals in advance so that we know where we are. Okay, and then so the bank said, if you borrow over 300K but lower than 400K, your interest rate could be something like 14%. Okay, and if you borrow over 400K but lower than 500K, then your interest rate could be 15%. Okay, and if you borrow over than 500K but lower than 600K, your interest rate will be higher than 15%. Maybe it's 17 or 18% over there. Okay, so you can draw a line crossing all of these points so that you can have a curve of how much you borrow and how much percent you need to pay to the bank. Okay, and the next thing is you can draw the project. You can draw the project and its profit on the same chart as well. So what it means is you have project A, you remember that? And the cost we said for project A, cost is 60K. Okay, so that would be 60K will be something here. And the return, the rate of return is 35%, right? Remember that? So you can draw something like this. So this is 35% return, and this is the 60K you want to borrow, you want to use for their project. Okay, now take a look at the area of this blue rectangle. What is the area? So the area is the height times the width, okay? Which is the height is 35%, the width is 60K. What is that? It is the profit. Remember that? Okay, so which means the area, the size of this rectangle is the profit you earn from doing that project. And then what is the area of this black rectangle? The same, it is the height times the width. The height is 10%. The width is 60K. So what is that? That is the interest you want to pay back to the bank. All right, so we said if your profit can cover your payback, then which means that's a good project, right? So obviously, this blue rectangle, the area is much bigger than the black rectangle, which means the project A is something you can say yes to. Okay, so this is a way where you can compare your interest rate and the bank's interest rate, and to see if your rate of return is higher than that. Okay, then now let's imagine you have all the projects aligned on this chart. Okay, and they are ordered by their rate of return. So the highest rate of return goes the first, and the project B, lower rate of return, goes to the next, and then the C, and then the D. So they have the order of, they are ordered or prioritized by their rate of return from the highest to the lowest. Okay, and then you have this blue curve, which is the curve of interest. You want to interest rate you want to pay back to the bank. And so just by observation, the project A, project B, C, D, E, they all have their, profit covering the payback you want to pay to the bank, the interest you want to pay to the bank, because their area is much bigger, and this is how much bigger it is compared to what you need to pay back. Remember these two areas, right? So project B, yes, because the profit is more than how much you want to pay. And this is how much more, okay? This is how much more. This is how much more. Okay, and the C is the same. This is how much more. It is over the how much you pay back to the bank, and the same to the D, same to the E. But be careful when you're looking at the project F. Okay, you want to borrow more than 600. Well, this is 600 million. Well, we use 600K, so we can use that as $1,000. Okay, so you want to borrow more than $600,000 from the bank. Then you need to pay, that is the interest rate you need to pay. And this is how much profit you can make. If you compare that with how much you need to pay to the bank, the area is almost the same, which means the little more you borrow from the bank couldn't cover or barely just cover the interest you need to pay to the bank. So that is the border or the bottom line where you need to say no to the project. Because if you cross that border, that means the money you need to pay back to the bank could not be recovered by the profit of that project. It's not a good deal. Okay, so you want to say no to project F, and of course you want to say no to project G, because the profit you earn from that project is even lower than the money you need to pay back to the bank. See, this area is lower than this blue line. Okay, so your cost is not going to be recovered by the payback, by the return. So this is another way where you can decide what is your maximum attractive rate of return. Okay, so your minimum attractive rate of return is the level of interest rate where the project can recover the cost. And based on this chart, we determine that, okay, 16% per year is gonna be that rate of return. So this is just one of the many ways you can determine your MARR. Okay, but the takeaway for you is the MARR is some bottom line, and you want to use that as the interest rate to calculate the cash flow, to convert the cash flow, but you want to know that's the bottom line, that's the lowest interest rate you can accept. So if you have higher interest rate than MARR, then of course your cash flow is gonna be healthier. Okay, whatever you calculate out is gonna be higher. But if you have lower interest rate than your MARR, it's a concern. So you always want to use MARR as the bottom line. So you want to use that to calculate, to convert the cash flows to the present, to the future, or to every year, and compare that with the zero.